Bonjour, friends. You know what time it is. It is time to wine with Wanda. So today is episode 12. Thank you so much for following me on this journey. And today, through our wine glass, we're going to visit one of the most iconic wine regions in the world, Bordeaux. So today is an ooh la la kind of day, and I have a very ooh la la guest. I have Veronique Dowes, who's the managing director of Château Phèlan Sègur, one of the iconic Bordeaux producers, and truly a benchmark for the Saint-Estèphe appellation. Their wines are highly regarded for their balance and also their beautiful aging ability. Their wines can age for decades. And really, when we talk about Bordeaux, we're really talking about the art of the blend. It really is where the blend in many reaches its highest level of expression, one can say, and really kind of set the course for what a red wine blend could be. So today we're going to be tasting the 2016 vintage of Phèlan Sègur. It is a blend of 55% Cabernet Sauvignon and 45% Merlot. And I'm going to let Veronique just give us all the juicy details about the Chateau and the wine. So let's get it going. All right, waiting for the Instagram magic as always. Hello, everyone. Bonjour, Veronique.
Bonjour, Wanda. How are you?
Good, ça va?
Ça va. Sorry, I was late.
Oh, it's okay.
Pamela must hate. She must hate me because I was totally confused. I thought that it was at 9 p.m. my time.
Oh, okay.
I was running into the vineyard because we are planting some Cabernet Sauvignon. I mean, it's the last day of plantation of Cabernet, beautiful small Cabernet Sauvignon. So I was checking on the plantation, and then, voilà.
Well, no worries. Sorry. No, it's okay. Wine is all about time, right? Patience is really one of the virtues of winemaking. So being a little late, it's worth waiting for. It's okay.
Merci, Wanda. But I must tell you that it's a great pleasure to just chat with you and to spend this moment with you. It's something I enjoy it a lot.
Thank you. It was so lovely to meet you. And I was reading your bio and so impressive. So just before we get into the wine, I want to learn a little bit more about you. So I know you were born south of Bordeaux and you went to business school, international business. You studied in Lyon. So I'm just curious, at what point in your life did you decide, you know what, a career in wine is what I want to do?
Actually, I come from a family who actually is from northern Italy, and I was raised from Piemonte, and I was raised on a farm. So everything related to soil, to nature, to farming, is really in my soul, in me. But I was I must say that we were not at home when I was a kid. We were not drinking very good wine.
Okay.
We were eating very well. My grandmother from Italy was doing. I mean, she was cooking like a goddess, but we were not drinking very well. So it's totally by chance that I ended up doing an internship in Napa.
Napa.
Wow. Yeah. When I was 19 years old. It's for those who are old enough. That was the Ronald Reagan years for you. Yeah. And for us, it was the François Mitterrand era. So it was a big change because we went from right wing to left wing overnight in 81, and half of the French population thought that it was going to be communist. I'm not going to talk about politics, but it gives you an idea why I wanted to escape.
Of course.
And, the only idea was because you have to think that back then, I'm not talking politics, but back then, really the world was run by the US. The US was really the center
superpower.
Of the world.
Yeah, at that time.
Superpower. Yeah. There was no China. There was Russia was almost over. And so on and so forth. And so the States were blooming. And the only thing I wanted to do, I wanted to go to California. Wanda had no idea there was a Northern California and the Southern California. I thought that you would have palm trees everywhere, big cars, you know, the ocean, sun, so on. And by chance, I found an internship in a winery in Napa.
Wow.
Valley, and I would have a totally different job and life today, but I ended up at Clos du Val on Silverado Trail. It was back in 80, I never remember, 7 or something.
Okay.
And it was great, and it was love at first sight with love at first sight with the industry. Because I was surrounded by winemakers, young or not so young winemakers coming from all over the world. Napa was really booming. It was totally different, very different from now. You really had the feeling of being able to start something. I mean, it was really the American spirit. I loved it.
Oh, that's wonderful. Kind of that renegade phase of the Mavericks, just breaking rules and trying new things.
Exactly. And thanks to Bernard Porté, who was actually at that time running Clos du Val, I learned a lot of things. French, first of all, behavior, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But then I learned how to wash a barrel. I was working with in the vineyards with, at that time, mainly Mexican people. I learned a little bit of Spanish, actually. And since I was not 21, Bernard was hiding me because, you know, I was French. At the beginning, I was legal. At the end, I was not so legal. He didn't want to see me in the tasting room. But once I was 21 years old, I went to the tasting room and I discovered the world of marketing and sales. That, I mean, I think you're stars in the States. There's nobody like you. There are nobody like you to promote, to explain, to get in touch with consumers, and that was a revelation.
That's fascinating.
And I loved it. And then I went back to France because my father said, "Okay, enough with fun in the US. You have to come back." Okay. And then I finished my studies and I worked in several regions in France, in south of France. And hi, Brad. I see a friend of mine from England.
I know it's nice when our friends are watching, right? Showing us support. So let's fast forward a little. I know you've been at Phèlan Sègur since 2010.
That's right.
Which, very auspicious time, because I hear that's one of the historical, very important vintages. So that 2010 is a very special year.
Yeah, it's we have in Bordeaux, we have two from this generation. We have two incredible vintages, 2009 and 2010. I joined Phèlan Sègur officially because I arrived a few months before, but I officially arrived in September 2010. So it's going to be my 10 years birthday, and I fully remember it very clearly because it was the summer was absolutely gorgeous, very dry, as we like in Bordeaux. We need dry and hot, not too hot, but dry and hot summer, because of our soil, because of the Cabernet Sauvignon that needs so much sun and heat to ripe. And I remember very clearly the kind of harvest we had, because we harvested quite late, though, in September. We started by the end of September, because the conditions and the vineyards were so sound and beautiful that we could leave the grapes on the vines and let the grapes mature and get what is very, very important for us in Bordeaux, which is the phenolic maturity. So the ripeness of the tannins and the anthocyane, the color. And it was so hot in September. That was crazy. That was this kind of Indian summer that we have in Bordeaux. And, you know, it's a funny story, but we have in Bordeaux, we have in the Médoc, we have the Médoc Marathon. You know, so it's a fun marathon that is run by approximately 9,000 to 10,000 people, and it's not an official marathon, but people stop in 40 chateaus and they drink wine and they.
Oh, I've seen that. Yes.
It's so great, And so it's always the first or the second weekend of
Okay.
September. So I remember that, and that was so hot that the people who were actually running through Phèlan Sègur, we are approximately at 20 miles, distance in the marathon. We were watering them with big hoses, water hoses. It was so hot.
Oh
And
my
it went
goodness.
on and on until we started the harvest late September, and it was gorgeous. And 2010 is I mean, when we vinified it and when we really tasted it en primeur, so when it was not even born, you know, it was a tannic beast, Wanda. It was ripe, big, deep, concentrated, incredible amount of tannins. I mean, and we were like, I remember very well all the Bordeaux, because not only Phèlan, it's the whole vintage, you know. And I remember when we were tasting the primeur in April, and after 10 wines, we had to stop because it was so big and concentrated and tannic, and we were like tasting 10 wines, and we had to rest for 5 minutes before starting again. So it's a very incredible wine that I think needed to age a little bit, and now it's perfect to start drinking it.
Beautiful.
Because it still has the power and the energy and the structure, but the tannins are more quiet, have rounded up a little bit, and the aromas have now switched to their second life. So it's not any longer the red fruit or actually it was more black fruit, like black currant and things like that. But now we are starting to really taste the slight evolution and what we love in Bordeaux. So we have aromas of a bit of mushroom, of leather, of, you know, it's really
how beautiful.
It's getting even more complex than when it was born.
Wonderful. Well, let's go back in time a little bit more, because what I didn't realize was that Château Phèlan Sègur has a connection to Ireland. That the founder was actually maybe Phèlan, and it became Phèlan.
Exactly. And I'm Wanda, I'm totally impressed by your French accent. You do it. You do it. You say it perfectly properly. Yeah, it's funny because now on Phèlan spells Phelan. There is the typical French accent on the E. And so it looks French, it sounds French, it looks French, but it's not at all. It's really an English name. And the name is, forgive my Irish accent, but it's Phèlan. And I don't know why somebody added an accent at one point. We don't know it when it was. We don't know who it was. Maybe it was the French administration. Maybe it was the Phèlan who wanted to look a bit more French. No idea. And the Phèlan, they came from a county in Ireland called Tipperary and a small city called Cashel. And like a lot of Irish people, they fled for so many different reasons, British, starving, so on and so forth. And there is a real Phèlan diaspora all over the world. So it's funny because we have Phèlan people. They follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, blah, blah, blah. And very often they call the Château and say, hi, there is one, especially Mr. Paul Phèlan, who is a good friend, and say, hi, we are the Phèlan family. Can we meet with the Phèlan family? And it's a little bit complicated because the Phèlan family was, they sold the Château in the very beginning of the 20th century, just after the First World War in 1919. And Wanda, talking about Ireland, I don't know if people can see the bottle. I'm not sure they can see.
I can hold it up as well. Yeah.
The big question, because very often in Bordeaux, you know, on the label, you have the picture of the chateau or the drawing of the chateau or something. And very often people, you know, they say, when we ask them, what is on the label, you know, and they say, oh, it looks like, you know, a vine, or it looks like a chandelier, or, you know, something like that. And not at all. This is something which is 100% unique in Bordeaux. This is called in French, I don't know the word in English, a monogram. So it is each letter of the name Phèlan, written in old way of writing, of French writing capitals.
Oh,
and
wow.
so that's to tell you something. We have plates, Wanda, from very famous porcelain factory in France called Gien, and they produce these blue plates, and we sent the plates that we have at Phèlan Sègur with the monogram on it, and they were made, they authenticated the plates, they were made in 1860. They were made by the Irish family, and that's why we decided to put this monogram on the label.
Wow.
So
I never would have guessed it was a monogram.
Yeah, it is. And it's very distinctive, and it's very, very unique.
Great. Well, you know, the other, no, please, I apologize for the noise. I'm in the middle of Manhattan, so even with the windows closed, I never know what sounds are going to come in.
No worries. If you, Wanda, if you hear a few tractors or something, you know, it's because it's time for them to go back to the chateau and go back home. So don't worry either.
Wonderful. So the other fascinating thing is, founded in the 18th century, if I'm correct, there have only been 4 owners and over 2 centuries.
I'm used to saying that we are a family-owned chateau, because this is true. The only thing is that we are changing regularly families.
Changing families. I like that.
But we are per se a family-owned chateau. So we had the Phèlan. We had the Phèlan for over 100 years. Then we had the Delon family. So the Delon family for Bordeaux wine collectors or amateurs is a very famous family, because they own one of the branches of the family owns a very famous Saint-Julien classified growth called Léoville-Lascaz. So they are very famous. Then the Delon family sold Château Phèlan Sègur back in 1985 to another French family, quite famous, rather actually famous in the business of restaurants and luxury hotels. And they have actually a restaurant that a lot of Americans know very well in Paris, called Le Taillevent. Alors maybe you don't know Taillevent.
I don't know it, no.
You're too young, Wanda, to know the Taillevent. But no, if they hear me, they're going to kill me. But the Taillevent is a very famous restaurant, which is a flagship. It's the traditional French gastronomy. Ooh. And it looks a little bit like a it's a beautiful setting, but it looks like a club. It's in the sense that people are used to going there. Like, you have politicians, you have people from the justice, and American gastronomes love this place. And so they have that, and they have a beautiful relais chateau in the middle of France in Champagne called Les Crayères. That's gorgeous.
Nice. So I hope to see France again one day when we can travel.
We are waiting for you, Wanda.
So tell me, so 2 years ago, it was sold by the third family. So tell me about your new owner.
Alors that's very different, because in the past, when we were under the ownership of the Gardinier, because one of the brothers of the Gardinier brothers lives in Florida, we had a beautiful American flag at the entrance of the chateau.
Really?
So my heart every morning was like, I'm proud. And we changed the flag, and now we have a Belgian flag. So now I'm as proud, but it's not as exotic, because Belgium is next to us.
Yes,
the new owner is a great guy. His name is Philippe Van de Vivre, and he's from Belgium. He's from the Dutch part of Belgium.
Ah, okay.
And you have to know that we have you have countries like the UK or like Belgium, for example, who have this very strong relationship with Bordeaux wines. UK because of business, and Belgium because of the fact that a lot of the consumption of great classified or non-classified Bordeaux was done in Belgium. And so you have incredible connoisseurs and collectors of Bordeaux in Belgium. And Philippe Van de Vivre is one of them. And he is a very successful businessman. His business is in ports management, nice. Unloading, reloading big ships like in Antwerp, blah, blah, blah. And he was looking for a chateau, and but it's been going on for years and years. So he saw a lot of chateaus, and when he saw Phèlan Sègur, same thing, love at first sight. And that was very funny, because I could feel that he was in 1 second the chateau had became his house, and he has a younger son, and we know that everything we do in the chateau, in the estate, just in the vineyard, like planting this, let's put it that way, 4 or 5 acres of vineyards over the last 2 days. It's not for me, it's not for Philippe, it's going to be for his son,
for the future.
Exactly. So it's something which is quite incredible to work for one man, his son, a family, because we can talk, we can discuss, we can exchange on the style of the wine, because I was scared to death when he purchased Phèlan Sègur that he would ask us to change the style.
Well, that was going to be my question. You know, when you get a new owner, there is that trepidation. So no major changes that will change the style of the wine.
Not the style. He's gonna.
Okay.
The good thing is that he gives us maybe more. I mean, he doesn't give us more money because he doesn't give us more money. But he doesn't need. He's not taking the revenue from us. You know, we keep our revenue. So it gives me more opportunity for me to invest, and not invest only in the cellars, but also invest in the vineyard, because it costs some money, you know, to replant or renew.
Of course.
So in the past, we would not renew maybe the vineyard as often or as regularly as we need it. Now, I mean, I do it on a regular basis, and it means that I have a vineyard that is working well, that a vineyard that we really take care of in the proper way. We have enough people to, we do everything by hand. We are not using any insecticides, you know. We are either we have grass in the vineyard, so we need to mow the grass, or we work the soil with some lighter tractors, but we need people. So we have the people, we have the time, we are renewing the vineyard. We was actually, that hasn't changed. We always had this philosophy of protection of the environment without being organic or biodynamic, just being smart and sensitive and sensible and reasonable. But now we have a vision, and that's changing a lot of things. But the only thing he told me is, don't change the style. What I like about Phèlan is the balance, is the fact that the wines are precise. I have an obsession on the quality of the tannins, because we are in appellation, Wanda, where the wines are tannic, are big, are structured, and if you don't grow grapes that are of good quality, and if you are not careful enough during the vinification, the maceration, and if you are not using the good barrels and do everything in the proper way, you might have some tannins a bit
too aggressive, too strong,
a bit aggressive. And at Phèlan, it's never the case. They are always velvety and smooth and silky. So the style, no change in the style, just even go better.
Well, I'm so glad you mentioned the appellation, because, you know, we tend to use Bordeaux as this very broad term, but there are appellations, and you're a son of Steph, which is on the left bank. So I would love for you to just kind of situate us where we are. We're in the Medoc, at Saint Estèphe.
Alors, first of all, Bordeaux is in the southwest of France. And we are very close on the left bank of this big river. I don't know if, do you see any map? Could you
Yes,
see any
yes.
map? I don't know if you can see. So this is the Atlantic Ocean here. This is the, I'm wearing my glasses, sorry. This is the city of Bordeaux is right in the middle here. And this is the river that we called La Gironde. And we would be here. So we are the most northern village appellation.
Okay.
So the village appellation, you have Margaux, Listrac, Moulis, Pauillac. Before Pauillac, Saint-Julien, Pauillac, and Saint-Estèphe. So to give you an idea, we are approximately 40 miles north of Bordeaux.
Perfect.
More or less 40 miles. So we are very close to the Atlantic Ocean in the sense that it's very oceanic. So it rains a lot in our vineyard, in our area. And we are close to the river. And that's a very, very important factor because the river protects us. When it's too hot, it cools down. When it's too cold,
cooling
it
effect.
warms up. Exactly. And so it protects us, and it's really something, a very important element in our terroir. What is the definition of the left bank of Bordeaux is really obviously the quality of our terroir. And the terroir was built over the last 30,000 years, and especially the last 10,000 years ago. A lot of these stones were brought by big rivers from the Pyrenees. You know, you had the glaciation, and then in between glaciation eras. And so during the in-between eras, a lot of these bigger stones or smaller stones were brought from the Pyrenees.
Okay.
And they are called gravels, grave. So they can be bigger or smaller, but you have gravels. So you have these gravels that create a very well-drained soil based on some basis of limestone. And that's absolutely perfect for Cabernet Sauvignon. And I must say, even if, I think that I've worked and experienced different winemaking area or wine regions, but I think that the Médoc is really the best. I'm not saying that very often, but it's the best place for Cabernet Sauvignon on the world.
In the world?
Really, I wouldn't say that of all the varietals, but for Cabernet Sauvignon, I really think that there's no better places than the Médoc for Cabernet Sauvignon, because of the fact that it's not too hot, it's not too cold, because of the terroir with the very drained soil, and so because of this magical combination of factors. Then we have the gravels, but we have also the finest element, which is clay. And the gravels, very drained soil that warms up quite rapidly. Clay, it's full of water, and it's, since it contains water, it's really a cold soil. What to say, a cool, cold soil. So it doesn't warm up very, very fast. That's why we dedicate the gravel Cabernet Sauvignon to Cabernet Sauvignon, and we plant the Merlot on the more clay.
Interesting. Okay.
Because the Merlot tends to ripe faster, so you want to cool down a little bit the trend of the Merlot on a cooler soil. So to make it simple, you put Merlot on clay and Cabernet Sauvignon on gravel. It's
good to know.
Obviously not as simple at all.
Not as simple.
But that's what it is, more or less.
And how many acres do you have?
I have
or hectares even.
I have 70 hectares, so I think it's over 200 acres of vineyards, but we have plenty of forest and meadows on the property.
So the biodiversity as well, which is very important for the health of the vineyard.
Absolutely, Wanda. And it's also the history, because back then when the chateaus and the properties were created, they were not only dedicated to wine. You had plenty of families of workers, farmers living on the properties, and you needed to have cows and chicken and whatever. And so you had land for everything, and they were growing their carrots, potatoes, corn, whatever. So you had vineyards, but the rest as well.
Yes, subsistence. Well, I think we should get into the wine. You've given us a great background on the Château, the region. So now, for those who just tuned in, we have the 2016 vintage, which is 55% Cabernet Sauvignon and 45% Merlot. And is that roughly the balance of the blend from vintage to vintage, or?
It's more or less the balance of the blend, because we have in the vineyards, we have 58, 59, I mean 58, 59% Cabernet Sauvignon. We have 38, 39% of Merlot. And then we have a splash of Petit Verdot and a splash of Cabernet Franc. So yes, more or less 55% Cab, 45% Merlot is the right balance at Phèlan Sègur. Sometimes we have different blending, like for example in 2014, where the Cabernet Sauvignon showed so well and they were so ripe and we harvested so late that we have up to 67% of Cabernet Sauvignon. So it's a totally different wine. 67% of Cabernet Sauvignon at Phèlan Sègur, it makes a very muscular wine, very structure, but very muscular. It needs some time. It really, to my taste. With the 2016, alors we are talking great vintage. We are really talking great vintage, Wanda. I think that if you look back to the recent vintages, we were talking about 9 and 10, which are two incredible vintages. 9 because it was sexy, rich, opulent, mature, vibrant. 10 because it was, like I was saying, a tannic beast with a lot of depth and concentration. But then we are talking once again great vintage. We have the 2016, and 2016 is the result of, I don't know, magic. I don't know what to say. Everything went well. It rained during the spring when it was needed. We had exactly the proper weather during the summer. Not too hot, not too dry, not too wet. Enough sun during the month of September. Once again, it's very important for us to have this very sunny and dry September. And you know also why it's a great vintage and called, it's really an exceptional vintage in Bordeaux. It's because it was for everybody, right bank, left bank. You know, we have this vintage is very consistent all over the area.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So it was great for Cabernet Sauvignon, for Merlot, for Petit Verdot, Cabernet Franc. Everything showed well. It's quite amazing. And we end up with a wine which is quite astonishing, because for us, it's a wine which is still quite young.
It is young.
It's a 4-year-old wine. So, you know, in Bordeaux, we always say that we are drinking our wines when they are 10 years old. It's less and less true, because the wines are harvested, the grapes are harvested with a better maturity each year. And so the wines are much approachable, younger. 16 has such a quality of tannins, such a balance, such a freshness, a precision, that it's drinkable now, even for us.
That freshness really comes through. So it's rich and it's ripe, but that freshness just keeps it alive and graceful. And there's a nice herbal quality to it as well.
Yes, always. Yes. Yeah. And then I think that what you're tasting is also the characteristic of what makes Cabernet Sauvignon a Cabernet Sauvignon. So you have but ripe, very ripe Cabernet Sauvignon, but not overripe, because that's also the risk, is to harvest too late. And then you miss the window, and especially the aromatic window, and then you ended up with some aromas of of not a bit jammy without being jammy, but you go just over. And it's not the case with the 16. The 16 is perfectly in place, And to me, if I have one word to describe the 16, it's the harmony. You have everything in the harmony. You have everything in the 16. Once again, the attack is very elegant. It's very refined. It's the tannins, even at the very first of the tasting, are just right there. You can feel them. They are so tightly knit,
Very.
And the middle is the middle of the tasting is rich without being too rich. You are talking about the freshness. It's full without being overwhelming. It's built on the length, always with Phèlan.
Very long finish. I was going to say
exactly. it. Phèlan is never a blockbuster. Phèlan is always a very precise, long, complex wine. Never something too big. Never. It comes, It has this kind of refinement and elegance. It's never too much.
And I love, there's a real kind of minerality at the core of it. I feel like all this beautiful fruit and earthy flavors are kind of dancing around this real core of minerality that's keeping them, the choreography in line,
Exactly.
It's, really...
But it's very true. It's funny that you're mentioning that, Wanda, because sometimes we have vintages that don't really tell any story when you taste them. Here you have a vintage with the 16. It's a full story. When you taste it, it's a story. It brings you somewhere.
True.
It's a real it's a trip. I don't know how to say that. It's not a very nice word, trip.
No, but I agree. It's a journey.
It's a journey.
It's a journey.
It's a journey. It's a and in terms of aromas, and it's once again, in a red wine, especially with Cabernet Sauvignon, when you have Cabernet Sauvignon, it's always obviously red fruit or black fruit. We are talking about raspberry. We are talking about dark cherry. We are talking about very ripe blueberries or raspberry. But then you always have this taste of spiciness a little bit.
Very subtle, not overwhelming.
Very subtle.
Yep.
And a major point for me is the fact that we age our wines in approximately 55% of new oak, French oak, but never more, because the aging is something which is important because, first of all, it's the best micro oxidation for the aging for a year and a half. So it's a long time. So all the oxidation really helps the tannins to really mature, and it fixes the color and everything. So that's chemical, but it's a chemical process, but it works well. And then it gives it gives some tannins of the wood. What we say, we call them élagitannins in French, and then it gives the kind of toastiness. But that's one of the recipes is not to give to your wine either some aromas of vanilla, not for us, or coconut, not for us. Just a touch of toastiness, but very slight, very slight.
No, it's actually, you know what? It's hot and humid in New York, and this wine is very refreshing. Really? It's not, it's a year-round red. Some people in the summertime, like, oh, I don't want to drink a red wine. It's too hot. But there's a juiciness and a freshness to this wine that I'm not feeling overwhelmed by it, as hot and humid as it is in New York now.
But I'm glad to hear that. And that's a very interesting point, because sometimes people say, okay, oh la la, Saint-Estèphe wines or Bordeaux wines, you need to have a juicy piece of beef to enjoy them, because you need to eat and when you drink them. Not at all. I wouldn't, for example, with the 10, yes, 2010, maybe you need a piece, big piece of beef. But for vintage like 15 or 16, they are complete by themselves.
Yes, it is. It's very approachable. It's elegant. I always love a wine. I always say, and people who've been watching this series, it's like, here she goes again. But I always love a wine that I can serve to my friends who don't know a lot about wine, will go, ooh, delicious. And my friends who do know about wine will get the nuance and complexity and what it takes to make a wine at that level. So I think for me, this strikes that sweet spot, you know?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. And you know, even in Bordeaux, we are very because it's our wines, our babies, our children, whatever you call them, and we are very demanding on our wines, very much, and especially when demanding also on the conditions to drink them, because we are lucky enough to have access to great wines of the world.
Of course.
And I shouldn't say it, but you know, I love to cook, Wanda, and have teenagers. So in the
Okay.
past, they always tasted the wines and smelled, but when they were younger, I said, no, you don't drink, not too much. Now they are old enough to drink. So when I come back home at night, you know, especially with the virus and everything, we spent a lot of time together. So we were opening bottles of wines while cooking because we had time to cook, you know.
Yes.
And so we had a lot of white wines. I love white Burgundies and or Chenin from the Loire. I mean, I love that. But then you want to change, and we wanted to have red wine. So we were opening some 2015 and 2016 of Phèlan Sègur, which would not be politically correct, you know, because we were having a glass of the 15 and the 16 while we were cooking, you know. And for us, that's very exotic, you know, because that's what we were watching on American series, you know.
That's true.
You know, because, you know, in France, you drink wine when you eat.
When you eat, yes.
So now we are having our glass of wine while we are cooking and chatting, and it's
I
and
love it. Well, you know, as my boyfriend says, there are no rules anymore. The world has changed.
That's
The beautiful thing is you're cooking with your children and enjoying the moment. And that's what food and wine do, right? They bring us together, you know?
That's right. That's right.
So I always like to have a little fun with my guests. You know, I think for all of us who work in wine, there are trends or misconceptions that people have that drive us crazy. So is there something that you hear or a trend that you're like, please, I just need to yell about this. I want to get it off my chest, you know?
I'm gonna say something which is very common, I'm sure. I hate to hear about this. I don't know if it's actually if I'm answering your question, but I hate to hear this. Oh, this is a wine that has been made by a woman, you know, by a lady.
Ah.
I don't think there are wines made by ladies or wines made by men. You know, when they say, or when people say, oh, it's a masculine wine or it's a feminine wine. No, it's just a wine that has some characteristic of balance, of sweetness without being sweet, of maturity, of finesse, but there's no masculine wine or feminine wine. That drives me crazy.
No, you're right. And people do use that often. And sometimes I even had a winemaker say to me, he's like, oh, you like this very macho wine. And I go, really? It's a great wine. So I kind of see where you're going. You know, one thing before you came on, I was telling a little story about how I worked in a friend's wine shop in Brooklyn, and I loved it. And so these young people would come in and say, I want a red blend. I said, oh, have you tried Bordeaux? No, I want a red blend. I say, well, you know, they're kind of the masters of the red blend, the OG original red blend. So I just want to remind everyone, when you're out there looking for your red blends, hello, they've been doing it a really long time. They know what they're doing.
Merci, Wanda.
Yes.
Merci.
Well, this has been so much fun. I hope we get to do it in person next year, maybe.
I don't know. Just to tell you that here at Phèlan, there is something a little bit special, is that we don't have any visitor center per se, like you would have other chateaus, but we you know why, Wanda? It's because if you make an appointment, we were delighted to receive visitors, but we don't have any guides or hostess.
Okay.
We do it ourselves.
Oh, wonderful.
So that's why sometimes we are very busy, or so we rather say no, we cannot take any appointments because we are too busy doing the bottling or things like that. But we are 3 or 4 people actually hosting visitors the maître de chez Fabrice, the chef de culture, the vineyard manager, Luc, Marie-Paul, who is in charge of the communication, myself. But we want to give the real story to people who come. We don't want to give them something which is written on a paper.
Exactly.
So it takes a lot of time to do that. And the good thing also about Phèlan Sègur is that thanks to our former owners, we were in the restaurant business, we always had a chef.
Oh,
so
nice.
We have a chef at Phèlan. Can you
Nice.
believe? He's not here to feed us, really.
I was going to ask, does he make lunch for you every day?
No. Yeah, Wanda, this is my lunch.
Oh. Today's chic, a little bag.
When I'm busy and I don't have time to either receive some visitors or go on to a restaurant, I'm having my small snack. But the good thing is that when we receive people, if they want to stay and share lunch with us, they are welcome. So and it's something which is just amazing because we spend 3 hours together.
Oh, nice.
And you know, we will. I wouldn't say that I would recognize the visitor in 10 years, but for 3 hours we share so many things, because when you talk wine, you talk life.
Yes,
you talk
exactly.
Sensation, you talk emotions, you talk very personal, and so it's 3 hours that are just incredible, including the fact that sorry, I plug my phone.
No, that's fine.
Including the fact that that's why we make wine. We make wine to share our wines with people who love that, and that's the only reason. Not to make wine to make wine. So if people want to come and visit us, I mean, once everything is over or goes back to normal, we are delighted to receive them and to spend some genuine.
Well, you will be hearing from me once it's safe.
Oh yeah. Please, Wanda, please. I would be delighted.
Well, you ended on such a beautiful note. I always say, wine is the ultimate icebreaker. You and I have never met in real life. Wine brought us together, and
Exactly.
That's what happens over a table. You start out strangers and you share a beautiful bottle like the Château Phèlan Sègur, and it really brings those walls down. And we need more of that in the world. We really do.
I agree.
So thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Merci, Wanda. That was a privilege to spend this moment with you. Great privilege. I thank you. Your smile is just incredible, Wanda. Keep your smile and your joy, and it feels so good.
You're so sweet. Thank you.
Across the Atlantic, okay?
Thank you so much.
Merci, Wanda. You take care. Take care.
Au revoir.
Au revoir. Merci. Bye.